What's up, guys? Welcome back to another THP Strength podcast. On this episode, we are actually going to be interviewing probably the most exciting guest we've had on in a very long time, Daryl Sullivan. Daryl is an Olympic high jumper. Daryl, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your accolades, a little bit about your history as a jumper.
All right. Like you said, my name is Daryl Sullivan, an Olympic high jumper. I'm originally from Illinois. I attended the University of Tennessee for 5 years. You know, made multiple All-American teams, collegiate record holder in indoor SEC, second highest SEC high jump. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much it to start
So
out.
you said second highest high jumper in the SEC. Is that like
I said outdoor. I have
outdoor?
the
Outdoor. Okay.
highest mark. Yeah, but indoor, number one.
So, for those of you that don't know, backstory between how I met Daryl. So, basically, I was coaching at Duke. It's right before COVID. And I have heard about this incredible jumper from Tennessee. And I like followed him. And I don't know if you had followed me back or maybe followed Isaiah at that point. I'm not even sure. But
I recall.
I I end up like going to the meet. I'm coaching my jumpers through it. And we get out way earlier. I think our jumpers were out at like 2 meters or around 2 meters. I think Bo ended up
Mhm.
going like 6'8" or 6'10. And then there was like 3 or 4 guys left. Daryl was one of those guys. And in warmups, I just see you booming like 2 meters as if it were a joke. Like you just like
Yeah.
casually put it up to 2 meters and you sailed over this bar as if it meant nothing. And in my mind, I was like, wow, he literally just shit on my PR like 6 times over, sailing over the bar. Like it was so easy, just sitting over it. And I was so curious about how in the hell someone gets that powerful. So you had said this on the other day when we talked,
Mhm.
like your build for high jump is a lot different than most of the other jumpers. You would agree with that? Like how are
No,
most
I
jumpers built
definitely,
compared to you?
no, I definitely agree. Stature wise, I'm a lot shorter, a little bit more bulkier than other jumpers, so I'm not your typical like a high jumper.
Right.
But
So are you stronger than a lot of those guys to your knowledge?
honestly, I'm not even completely sure because I've been training by myself for so long, so I have no clue what other athletes are even lifting. But from what I've saw on social media, I've seen some jumpers that are pretty strong. But for the most part, I think I got them, especially in the upper body region.
Right. So you lift upper regularly?
I don't really lift upper body regularly. Like growing up, I used to want to bench press. Like I used to want to bench the most. So that's how I grew up. Just doing a lot of upper body. And then here recently, like we've had to definitely cut back on that because I tend to put on some size pretty quickly. So
Yeah, I know, like I said, when I saw you jump, it was your your hips and legs, you look like a horse. Like you're literally just a like I literally tell someone I'm like he has horse legs. Do you think you're built more like a long jumper even or
I would say probably built more like a long jumper or triple jumper, honestly.
mm,
Yeah.
triple for sure. I could definitely see triple jump. You
Long
definitely look like
jumper.
your built like a triple jump. Are you pretty fast down the run? Like if you had to run 100 or something or no? Because most high jumpers
Man,
we talk to are not
I'm
very quick.
fast. I'm fast. I'm pretty fast. I'm not gonna sit here and tell the people I'm not fast. I don't do much speed training, but give me a good few months and I'm up there with the best of them.
Okay. So have you ever run like a 60 or a 100 or a 200 or anything?
I haven't. I mean, the last time I ran 100 or 200 was in high school. Right now I don't mess with anything above 100 meters, honestly, in practice. And even then, max output probably around 80%. I go no 180%. Last time that happened, I tweaked my hamstring, so I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, that's fair. Isaiah doesn't run anything over like, what would you say, Isaiah? 30 meters?
Yeah.
And
I think
that's,
the I think the longest I ever did in a training cycle was 60.
and how do you feel about long sprints in general?
I don't like them. It feels like cardio.
This man is just a 4 second phenom, 3 second phenom. He literally can't do anything more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, a high jump approach is longer than
Right.
Isaiah's dunk approach by a
Huh?
significant amount. And in high jump, if you're up and you miss the bar, what's the time afterwards after you miss the bar? Or is it usually like in NCAA? I guess it's five alive usually, right? So they give you what? Like
Right.
they
Three.
would give
It's
you
Yeah, some meets is 5, but I would say most meets is 3.
How long would you say is usually the rest period in the NCAA, like upper level meets?
I mean, it just depends on how many jumpers would be within the meet. Probably like 5 minutes in between bars. If you miss a bar and there's not a lot of people left, it could be somewhere between like 3 and 5 minutes. Honestly, I would say.
Yeah. Do you find that you cool down in that time period?
I honestly do. Like we spoke about the first meet in 2019 that I jumped 233. I almost actually fell asleep during that competition because the starting height, I can't recall, but it was somewhere around like 6 foot or a little bit below 6 foot. And I didn't come in that day until around 2 meters. So a lot of the time I just have to focus on staying warmed up and not allowing my body to cool down.
Was that like a tune up for you coming out against these like kind of rookies compared to you? I mean, there was one other guy I think that jumped like 220,
Right.
and that was like it. That was it. I don't think
Mhm.
there wasn't even another 7 foot guy. I think Bo was the only other 7 foot guy, the kid from
Uh-huh.
Duke. That was
Right.
it.
I remember we spoke. There was the Virginia Tech had
Yeah.
a good jumper, but
Brendan, I think was his name. I can't
okay.
remember his last name.
But nonetheless, like coming into that meet, like I just think about it just going out there to compete. Like I'm not really sizing up my competition. I'm just going out there focused on myself. Because at the end of the day, like you can only control your controllables, and that's what you can do.
Yeah.
But I mean, watching other jumpers compete versus what jump, what I'm capable of jumping, yeah, it was kind of almost like, just sitting back, relaxing, just waiting for my time to get out there and clear some bars. So
Well, whatever the hell it was, it worked that
yeah, most
day.
definitely. Like I was just laying there, just chilling. I yawned at a couple points during the meet, like just waiting for my time to get ready and go.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I don't even know if I fully finished the story, but basically how the story goes is Daryl jumps 233 that meet, which in feet is what, 7'9",
7, 7 3/4.
7'7 3/4", goes
Mhm.
out, jumps. And how tall are you?
Man, sit.
Okay, all
I'm
right. How about
6
this?
foot.
On
Yeah, six
Tinder, how
foot.
tall are you? And standing next to me, how tall are you? Because I thought
I
your
don't.
stature was like a little shorter than mine was. Like I didn't
Yeah,
feel like you were.
I'm gonna be honest to the people. I'm 6 foot. With shoes, with spikes on, without. I'm sitting around the 5'11 3/4 region.
So you're
You know.
literally my almost same exact height. And then
Yeah.
your arms are not like crazy long. And you had said this because I had asked this, like, do you ever really dunk? And you had said, yeah, all the like in high school. So in high school, did you dunk a lot?
I would say all the time, like growing up through the middle school, like high school, like I dunked quite a bit until I got pretty serious with track. And I started to have some other things like nicks that started to bother me. So then I had to shut it down and really, focus on high jump and just track and field in general.
Right. What was the craziest dunk you ever did? Were they just simple punch one handers, like head at the rim, or did you do it? Did you try to do anything
Man,
fancy?
I never really was into doing anything fancy too much. Like, yeah, I really just went out there and just tried to jump my highest every single time.
Yeah,
Like
that's pretty
growing
much how
up,
I am.
I grew up jumping on like concrete across the street, like just dunking all day, every day, having dunk contests with my friends. Like there was a point where me and my cousin would go to this school and they had a legitimate, basketball rim that was in the ground, and there was a garbage with a mattress right next to it. So we would put the mattress in front of the rim and we would just be having dunk contests going in between the legs, 360s behind the back. And that's pretty much how everything started.
So what was the what? How old were you when you got your first dunk on 10 feet?
I'm not gonna lie, it was my freshman year. It was
Freshman
my
year.
freshman year, and I believe my arm was broke too. My arm was broke.
What was it, a two-hander then, or did you dunk with the
It
other
was it was
hand?
it was one-handed dunk. It was a one-handed dunk. Yeah.
Did you start track at that point? Had you been doing track at that point?
I had started track my freshman year, and then I broke my arm trying to dunk outside. It was wet outside. I slipped, broke my right arm, so that cut my track season short, and I jumped 5'8" that year. But nonetheless, like in
Okay, so
between, like
I actually wanted to ask this. What was your
okay,
progression in high jump? So you got
okay,
your first dunk, you jumped 5'8".
And how tall were
right.
you? How
It was
tall were
either
you when
five
you?
eight or 5'10". I would say I was around like five. I want to say I was around like maybe 5'8" or 5'9". I honestly cannot remember. Like that was so long ago. But yeah, I went from 5'8" to 5'9" to 6'8" to
Wait,
6'10".
wait, 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 wait. You went from 5'8" or 5'9", and how tall were you at the time when you jumped that?
I want to say I was around the same height, honestly.
So you jumped your height, and then you jumped a foot higher the following year.
The following year, yes.
A foot high. What was that progression like for you? Did you do indoor or anything, or did you just go out and outdoor and day one you could jump like 6'4"?
It was indoor, I believe it all. No, it was outdoor when I PR'd and jumped 6'8". It was later on to the season, so it was sectionals. It was that sectionals meet right before we were qualifying for state, and that meet I ended up jumping 6'8". Um, but yeah, that was something like after my freshman year. This is something that I knew I wanted to do as opposed to playing basketball, and like I just went for it because our school record was 7-1, held by a guy named Cameron Wright, who was on the USA team. So I really just wanted to go for his school record and have an opportunity to compete with the best in the world at that point in time. Because
Bro,
I knew
what are
no
they
one.
putting in the water out there? Like what? That's insane. 7'1" was
Yeah,
your high school record. Did you have a big high school?
I didn't have a big high school. It was classified as a 2A high school in Illinois. But honestly, where I'm from, you've heard of Zach Riley before, of course, right?
Yeah.
He's from that area, like 10, 15 minutes away from me. And he jumped 7'5" in JUCO and then went to K-State. So around that area I'm from, there's a good niche of high jumpers that came up.
Where
So
where in Illinois? You said Illinois?
Southern Illinois, SIU, Carbondale area.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
man, what the hell? Because, well, Will Williams, I don't know if you know Will, he's from
yeah.
Chicago.
I do.
So I mean, he has crazy bounce,
Nah, he
like
does.
crazy.
Yeah.
He jumps so high, and he's so quick off the ground. Like
Hmm.
he periodically tags me, and we'll talk about stuff. Like weirdly, I've known Will since 2016 or 2017 because I saw him dunk as a long jumper, and you don't see that happen super often. Like Jeremiah Davis from FSU. He's another guy,
Okay.
loves to dunk, really, really often long jumper. But I like posted Will, and he was one of the freakiest athletes I'd ever seen because he could jump 820 in long jump, run like a
Hmm.
10. I don't even know what his 100 time is. It's like less than 10.5. I think he's faster than 10.5, or at least capable of it. And then
Right.
he could literally get his head above the rim, but he pops off the ground in like 2 seconds off 2 feet, unlike anything I'd ever seen. So like we've had Will on a couple times, and he's like, I don't know why high jumpers don't dunk more often. Like I want to get a just the most versatile jumpers in the world, get them all together, dunkers, high jumpers, long jumpers, whatever it is, get them all together. And I want to just let's have a massive dunk session, and then
Right.
we'll go do each other's like respective events, and we'll see like what's the difference between these guys. First, would you ever be down for that? And two, what do you think that you would excel in something like that, or do you think you'd struggle relative to someone like Will and Jeremiah
Man, I feel
and
like
Isaiah?
I feel like with time I'll get it down because I know with professional dunking there's an art to it as well. Just like I practice the high jump, like a big thing with that is also having bodily awareness. So that's something that I've tried to do 360s reverse in between the legs, but it takes practice, it takes time. So I feel
Yeah,
like you give me some time, I'll be able to excel. But it would definitely take some practice and some hard work, no doubt. Like I don't want
yeah.
to take anything away from what Isaiah be doing out here because I know I cannot do that. I may be able to do that on a 7 foot, 8 foot rim, but I'm not doing it on 10.
You're gonna do a 360 behind the back between 360, drop it between your legs, catch it with the same hand, and dunk it.
I'm not gonna lie, that's so crazy. That's something that I actually tried to do when I was younger. You know what I mean? But I never could.
Yeah,
Like
the kid's
it's
a
different.
specimen. The thing
No.
is with Isaiah is he his hands are, and when I say hands, like hand speed
Mm-hmm.
and the coordination of that. One time we timed, so Isaiah, you wouldn't define yourself as like a 1 foot jumper, right?
No. What is it? What is a 1 foot jumper?
I would say someone that specializes in 1 foot.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay. So I've been trying to learn how to do an East Bay for I don't even know how freaking long because it is just the bane of my existence. I have terrible hip mobility. You've talked about your hip mobility, how it's pretty bad, but you jump way higher than I do. So I've struggled with this dunk for so long. And the arm action on it is really different. It's like the running arm action that some guys do in high jump. Dick Fosbury actually did that running arm action off the ground, RIP. And I tried to do that for an East Bay. I like cannot do it. Isaiah does what's called a tamala, which is where you do like you basically do the East Bay position, but then you split your legs the other direction, kind of like a split jump in the air, and then you go around the
Okay.
inside of your leg and dunk with your other hand. So that's like technically like way harder, way harder. Isaiah, after not dunking off of 1 foot for quite literally years, did that the first day back after a heavy elastic cycle of like depth jumps and stuff like that. We measured the speed at which he could get his hand, like the ball through his leg into the rim. And it was, I think, what, like 40, 50% faster than mine.
Yeah, yeah.
Like your hand speed is, do you think that's something that separates you from everyone else?
Yeah, I think that's like, I don't know, to be a pro dunker, that's half the battle right there. It's like you have to get your vertical to an elite level, but you also have to get your hands to an elite level as well.
Could you handle the ball, Daryl, in high school?
Could I handle it? Yeah, I could handle it. But like you said, like putting it together with trying to dunk and doing between the legs behind the back, like that's a completely different story.
Yeah.
That's a completely different
Yeah.
story. One
It
thing
is
that
it is different too, like because I've done drills like on the ground and stuff to try to get my hand speed up, but as soon as you jump, it's like it's completely different. It feels different. So you have to
right.
you have to be practicing it with like a jump. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely agree with that. Our friend Travis, he's like the back expert now. He went from, I don't even know, doing maybe he could, he like back rim windmills, weighed like 210, started training with us, lost like 40 pounds, and then could literally do everything. He can East Bay, he can like elbow, he can windmill elbow. He's crazy progression, but he's like the back expert, and he's like, I swear by low rimming. Low rimming is the key to any dunk you ever could want to do. Like, John, you need to just low rim the hell out of every East Bay ever. So I did for a long time, and it did help, but for me, I couldn't connect the dots the same way that Isaiah does, or some of these other guys. Like Kilgannon is kind of like that too, right, Isaiah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he can just do
It's
hand speed and then rep it, and then he's good to go.
yeah, it's weird. Like I feel like a lot of it is just being able to just visualize yourself. Like how Daryl said, like a lot of high jumps, like having body awareness. Like Daryl, like I bet you could probably practice high jump like in your head, like in a way, right? Like you could
Right.
like visualize it and stuff. And if you needed to
Uh-huh.
change something, you could probably think about it and then like make the adjustment. Like I think dunking's like that too. Like you could tell me a dunk that's never been done before, and I can like look at it and I could be like, okay, and I can just imagine how it would feel.
No, that's the most important thing. I feel like once you reach a certain level of like what you do in your expertise is like knowing how it feels.
Yes.
And like with Duncan, I cannot do that. It's like I take off. Okay, I take off. Now I have too much horizontal force. I ain't getting the vertical. Like I need help. Like I don't know what I'm doing.
You
Yeah.
just
Like I
get
need
reps in. That's the only thing. But
right,
for you, obviously, it's not the focus at the moment.
of
I mean,
course.
you're trying to focus on dunking, or on sorry, on high jump. I mean, being an Olympian is at the moment one of the highest accolades you can do as a professional athlete. So, I mean,
Most
I'd say that's like more of a priority. But I would love to see, and I know Isaiah would too, because we've talked about it. And for those of you that don't know, Daryl probably has the highest vertical that no one knows about. Your vertical, when you told me that you touched, or I'd asked, and I was like, what's your, like, have you tested? And you're like, yeah, I've touched like over 12 feet. And I was like, what? And your reach was, I think you said like, you told me, I thought you told me in meters, but I don't remember what it was. But it ended up equating to over 52 on a Vertec.
Okay.
And I just was baffled. And I have those videos still, because I was like, how in the hell? Like, do you still have those videos? If you do you test regularly like that anymore?
I haven't in a while. Not since I've been at Tennessee doing like the potentiated run touch jumps. Yeah, coach put I don't know. He would just make like a contraption because we don't actually have like I don't know what it's called
Yeah, the Vertec. Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Vertex,
you guys
but
have like a PVC pipe and a
yeah,
bell
he
or
would take
something.
he first would start out with a povo pole. He would attach a cup on the end and measure it with the tape measure. And yeah, he would put it somewhere over 12 feet, and I would just take like a 5-step little or run in and try and see how high I could touch.
Do you think if you did your full high jump approach with it, would you be scared that your body would like flip if you did that?
There's no telling. Yeah, I would. You know, one of the ideas I had, but I had never brought it up to coach was kind of put that PVC pipe or the pole vault pole like around the area where I take off so I can try and jump, touch it, and see how high I could go while also high jumping. But that's something that never happened.
I would be so curious to see that. Jay Clark tried it, a friend of ours who was a
Oh
track
yeah,
guy. He went to UCLA and he high jumped. He went super viral doing this, but what did he high jump and dunk, Isaiah? Do you remember? I think he jumped 6 foot and dunked on 9.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
So I would think, and he jumps high off 1 foot, but
Mhm.
he doesn't jump as high as you. I think his best high jump is maybe 7 foot. But at the time he did that, I think he was probably capable of jumping like 6'8", 6'10". You, I would think, would jump like, bro, the way I've seen you clear 2 meters, I think you could. I've literally seen you just sit over 2 meters. It was crazy. So I think you could go significantly higher than that. And I would be curious to see how mentally you would kind of reframe the jump as a high jumper versus a dunker high jumping. You're a high jumper dunking, but it's like you're doing your regular approach, you know? And I'm kind of curious, would you get more lift actually because you have a target above your head along with the fact that you're running your high jump curve? That's what I've always wanted to see is high jumpers run their curve and then test. But what I would be afraid of, and I've said this to Isaiah's like, why is it that high jumpers struggle to test their vertical on a vertex? Why don't a lot of guys do it or do it as well? Why don't we see more videos of this? The only guy that really does it is, Ivan Nuck, the Russian guy. He does it pretty regularly. And I've seen him touch almost 12 feet. But I was like, I think what would happen is you guys would flip because that's like when you run that fast and you put your foot down with that much force. I mean, you can do pop-ups and not do that. But Jordan Wessner, for example, if he does like a full approach like that, like a high jump curve, he quote unquote loses his balance in the air. And a lot of speed jumpers describe that, but as a power jumper, I don't know if you would necessarily, like someone that keeps the foot low to the ground and kind of drags the toe as opposed to someone like kicks their butt. I don't know if you would feel that sensation. Have you ever felt that sensation in dunking where you like kind of almost lose your balance in the air? You feel like you're like flipping or no?
Not necessarily. The only time that's really happened is when I've tried to do tricks in there. So maybe like a 360 or going in between the legs, like we explained earlier. Like I don't have the exact like hand-eye coordination and awareness in the air to actually complete that dunk.
Right. Yeah, that's how I felt too, because I think in high jump, your approach is so routine. Every time it's the same position, the same approach every time. But in dunking, you're going to drive the ball a different direction than you would in high jump. And like in high jump, how do you typically drive your arms every time? Like, do you come back and then forward, like through?
Up and back, so double arm action.
Okay, so do I. And then at the top, you kind of swim you jump off your right leg, so you swim the left arm?
Yeah, I swim up and go up over the bar with this ended up.
Yeah, and that just is not the same as dunking at all.
Yeah, it is different, but I think dunking is, like I said earlier, is what paved the way for me being such a great high jumper I am today.
Man, I wish that was the case for me. I aspire to be a better high jumper than I do a dunker, but I am unfortunately a far better dunker than I am a high jumper. And I said this to you, and you were like, "There's no way." But Isaiah, how many times have I like told you that there's a discrepancy between high jump and dunking, and that there are high jumpers out there that cannot dunk? Like,
yeah.
And we do not understand it. And when I told Daryl, like, what was your reaction when I was like, yeah, there's high jumpers out there that struggle to dunk, that jump over 7 feet?
Man, they got to be lying to you. They got to, like, because there ain't no way you jump to 7 foot and you can't dunk. I'm gonna be honest here. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to hurt any type of feelings, but like, is that even like really though? Like,
look at you. You know Yannick. You know Yannick Clausen, the Danish high jumper that's really short and super powerful. Do you know who I'm talking about? It's like Janick. Isaiah, can you pull this up on the screen share?
I don't even know.
Isaiah, do you have permission?
Did you give me?
Yeah, I'll give you permission right now. So he's a Danish high jumper.
How do you spell his last name?
It's CLAU or KLAUSEN. We'll ask Janik if he'd come on, but I don't know if he would.
I mean, my first question is, how tall is he?
He's short. He's very short, but he jumps 227. He's
227?
He's probably 5'8", 5'9" with short arms. But you jump 227. He power cleans over 300 pounds. I think he hang powers like 140 kilos. This guy.
I think I have seen that guy a while ago. I haven't seen his videos in a minute.
I don't know if because he wasn't a basketball player. Like, I don't know if dunking for him is easy. I'm not really sure. I mean, he's
No,
got.
he should be able to dunk, no doubt.
That's what I'm saying. Go 2 videos prior to this, Isaiah.
Which one?
Down below the purple shirt one. That video. I mean, yeah, this is 220, and he just freaking soars over it super easily.
Yeah, he can dunk. He can dunk. He gotta be able to, like, no doubt.
We're gonna play a game. We're gonna pull up high jumpers. We're gonna watch them high jump, and then you're gonna go, or we're gonna play the can he dunk or not, and I'll tell you if they can dunk or not. But I think he can, but I'm not fully sure. Have you ever seen Tamboree? I don't know how you say his name. The Italian. You ever seen him dunk?
I have seen him dunk. He was in the All-Star game a couple of times. He posted a whole lot of things through social media.
What were those dunks like though?
I'm gonna call them rim
No,
crazy.
I'll say it. I'll say it. They were below average, and I don't even feel bad about it. Coaching the best dunkers in the world, they were not good. As someone who is a gold medalist in the high jump and tall, you would think he can get his head above the rim and like do a reverse, but he couldn't, and it doesn't make any sense. But what I will say is power jumpers, guys that keep their foot low to the ground, they are way, way better at high jump, or sorry, dunking as well. So Shelby McEwen, we talked about Shelby. Talk about your connection to Shelby and now and then in the past.
Right. I mean, growing up, like we spoke earlier, I used to watch a whole lot of dunking videos, Dunkademics, and I never really knew who this guy was. And I believe it was my sophomore year when he came onto the scene. You know, he used to play basketball. Then he ended up showing up to Alabama. We just been competing together for a long time, you know, both being the SEC, both being Olympic high jumpers, competing at a top level. And when I realized it was him, I was like, well, that's crazy. That's wild. Like, it's a small world. But back then, like, we were just pretty much competitors. We didn't speak too much. But now that we've been, you know, on a world team together and been at some pretty – I actually saw him a couple of times, jumped against him a couple of times this year. So we're pretty cool.
Right. He seems like a super, super chill guy. He's now, I mean,
he is.
Is he the #1 U.S. high jumper at the moment?
I'm not even sure, honestly.
Other than you.
I'm not even sure. Based on, you know, IAAF has this world ranking standard and the points, so I honestly don't even know where.
Honestly, that shit doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. I don't understand that at all. As someone still in track at a high level, I feel like unless you do it regularly and you really care about the points, it doesn't even really make sense to me.
Not true, because, you know, for example, like if you're in college, which is, I guess it only applies to the States, but you're jumping maybe 233 like we were, and then you have people overseas going to these circuits and they're jumping 220. They're earning more world ranking points and they're seated above you within the standings. So
yeah, that's crazy.
It doesn't make really too much sense to me.
I remember that 233 jump, which, Isaiah, do you know where that jump is? Can you pull it up somewhere?
I was actually trying to look for it. I only see
it's on my page somewhere. Is it on your page, Daryl?
Which one?
On your Instagram, the one I filmed from the side.
I think I see it at the beginning of this video, but it's like
I actually have it. I have it here. Actually, I can share my screen.
Is this jump right?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
That's the one that went viral on TikTok.
Yeah. So that's crazy too. This is the backstory. I took this video. I was like, oh, I'm gonna stand on the other side. I was the only one to think to freaking do this. And I swear, you don't have any videos of someone filming you jump like this. I don't know why more high jumpers don't film this angle, but I was like, oh, it's gonna be the best angle. It's gonna be like perpendicular to their takeoff. You're gonna be able to see the rotation, how much lift he gets, his takeoff, all this like important stuff if you're a coach or a jumper interested. Because we know that the penultimate step sets up basically the whole takeoff. You know, that's like, you can try as hard as you can. You can swing your arms, drive your knee, but if your setup is terrible, you're probably not going to jump very high. So I was like, oh, I need to film this. And that video, bro, the hype of that environment was crazy. The lift was crazy. And yeah, it went super viral on TikTok. Like, I think it got, I remember DMing you and being like, yo, just so you know, I posted this on TikTok, not thinking anything of it. And it got millions and millions of views.
There was something up there like 2.4 million, I would say.
Yeah, it was early on in TikTok too. So the video was crazy. Virality was a little bit easier on TikTok at the time. Now it's a lot different. But yeah, I just remember being like, holy hell, I did not expect that to happen. So one of the craziest, most viral high jump videos, I think maybe that's like been posted in the last 10 years. Like I can't think of something that's more viral than that in the last 10 years. I mean, even the world record jumps are not that viral. Everything Mutaz posts typically from training is good. But yeah, that was just the environment too was insane.
Yeah, it was insane.
So I want to get into the specifics of how you actually approach high jump in terms of like your penultimate step, your technique, stuff like that. So dunking for me is pretty simple. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really think about much. I just gallop into it, take 3 steps, go up. You know, it's not a big arm swing, big leg swing, pretty easy. So for you, talk about like your approach and some of the focuses that you have when you're doing the approach.
All right. Well, to start, I come from like a walk-in 8-step approach. The most important part of any jump is establishing your approach first, establishing your rhythm, because that sets you off for your takeoff, right? And the high jump, if you're not consistent within your approach, you're not going to be taking off from the same point. Your trajectory over the bar isn't going to be the same. So the main focus that my coach and I have been working on for years is just consistency, right? Establishing that rhythm out the back and continuing to move through your takeoff. So what I mean by move through the takeoff is once you hit your curve, you're continuing to fight against other forces, creating that centrifugal force, making sure you create that lean, and continue to move through and stay open through off of your last 3 until you take off and up and over the bar. So it's really just the main focuses are the rhythm, consistency, and moving through my last 3 and being aggressive pretty much.
So are those typically, when all else fails, those are the things you consistently, those 2 or 3 things you're focusing on 99% of the time?
Yes.
How does when you jumped 6'8" in sophomore year, what did you never actually, I probably cut you off. What did you end up jumping junior, senior year?
So in high school?
Yeah, in high school.
So high school, first year, 5'8", 5'10" range. It was either 5'8" or 5'10" if I can remember correctly. Sophomore year, 6'8". My third year, I jumped 6'10" 3 straight times and almost cleared 7 foot. And then my senior year, I jumped 7'3" indoor to put me up at number 1 in the nation, and then ended up jumping 7'4" after I had already committed to the University of Tennessee.
Wow, that's just crazy.
And you know what's
was there
crazy?
any? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say what was crazy about my high school career is that my junior year, I was predicted to win the high jump, but it was moved indoors into a facility that wasn't like, I don't know, a lot of jumpers didn't like within like where I'm from, didn't jump well within that facility. And I ended up no hiding at outdoor state that year. It was at a college, EIU, Eastern Illinois University. I ended up no hiding. So I feel like that's what set me up for my senior year to come back and jump 7'3", because that was something that hit me hard.
He had that dog in him.
Yeah.
So you came out, you jumped 7'3", 7'4", your senior year. What changed from your freshman year to your sophomore year technically? Do you remember anything significant that led to such a drastic increase?
It was really just my motivation and determination, like my commitment to what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be within the sport just changed on a completely different level. And I also had great resources as well, as in like my coaches, they did everything in their power to help me out with whatever I needed, whether it was finding my approach or whatever cues I needed to be able to be great in order to jump as high as I possibly wanted to. Because that was meetings I had with them about where I wanted to go with this sport, what I wanted to do. And we also had a high jump coach in that area who actually coached Zach Riley a little bit. So he was a big one that actually helped me get my approach right and started my walk in. And actually, I went from a tennis step in high school, so that's one of the biggest game changers for me is just how I started to become more consistent and paying attention to like what I was doing on a daily basis. Also picked up cross country to stay in shape throughout the off season, and just really I was just determined to get where I wanted to go for my junior.
Wait, that's crazy. So
Yeah.
you're in the off season, you ran cross.
I ran cross country starting my junior year.
Really? And you
Yeah.
jumped 3 to 4 inches higher your senior year.
Yes.
That is, pardon my language, fucking insane. You did cross country, the slowest type 1 fiber sport, painful ass. Isaiah, do you think you could finish a 5K?
I've actually done cross country.
How was that? That's the key.
I was
The key's cross country.
bro, I was pretty good at
I
distance.
did cross country too.
I was pretty good at distance when I was in high school. I'm pretty good at suffering through pain.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that. So let's go through this. What was your best 5K time, each of us? What were your best 5K times? Daryl, what'd you run in high school? I'm curious.
Boy, like I said, I ran cross country, but I was a senior on the JV team, right?
Let's go.
I ran half the mileage of everybody else. I really did it just to stay in shape and
Did
just
you
to
ever
do
did you
something
ever
within
test though?
Do I remember? It was either like 20 or 21 was my time in the 5K.
That's not bad.
And
That's
that
not
was like a
bad.
fairly downhill like course, you know what I mean? Like to finish off the last stretch of the race. Like it was a nice little down slope.
I like that. All right, Isaiah, what about you? What was your best 5K?
I have no idea what my 5K time was. I know
The
my
only-
best mile time.
What
That's
was your
it.
best mile time?
5:30.
5:30.
That's,
How
Yeah.
old
that's
were you?
that's legit.
I was 15 when I did that.
You were good.
Yeah.
All around the athlete. Okay,
Yeah.
so I ran 1854. No, 1954. Something like that in the 5K. And my best mile time, I think, is just over 5 minutes. Those probably both happened my senior year. And then I'm trying to think of what else. It was excruciating. That sport was terrible. I hated it so much. The worst sport ever. I don't really think my brother is actually my identical twin brother. Daryl, I have an identical twin brother. He actually ran distance. I did all the jumps. My identical twin brother ran the 5K in high school in 16:30. So he was a legit distance runner in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I, at the time, was jumping 6'4" in high jump. So I was jumping 6'4". So you can imagine two twins like going to a meet in high school because you get points for how you're awarded. We're a small town in the middle of nowhere. It's not the level of talent that you were around. So I would do triple, high jump, long jump, and the 400. My brother would do the 800, 4x8, mile, and 2 mile. So we would literally win 8 events between the two of us because the talent was like okay, but we were actually pretty good relative to that. I mean, 6'4" is not bad.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're jumping another tier of like.
No, but 6'4" in high school, like a lot of meets, that's winning the meet.
Yeah, most of the time,
That's winning the meet,
unless you go up against you. In that case, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the anomaly. You're the outlier of outliers.
That was that height around that time.
Yeah. So
Probably.
it was fun, but that's crazy that all of us did cross country and all of us had decent 1-foot bounce. I have a theory that cross country actually makes you more elastic during those developmental years. Yeah, because even though it's a type 1 activity, you're getting so many foot contacts every single time that you go run that it can be useful if you don't overdo it. And by overdo it, I mean do what you did or I did or Isaiah did, where you just do it for a year and you're out. Like that's it. I think it teaches you the fundamentals of just running, you know, and teaches you how to suffer, which is really important for perseverance in the long term. And then all of the contacts, the foot contacts, are like little baby plyometrics. And that developmental age, having a stiff contact against the ground is really important. My twin brother, identical twin brother, never trained for dunking a day in his life. He could dunk it took him longer, but he could dunk his it would have been a freshman year of college, but I dunked my freshman year of high school. So he doing nothing, literally doing distance running, the opposite of power training, could dunk a basketball still, and only ran and played basketball occasionally. So all of his power training came from basketball, and he could still dunk, which was kind of crazy. He did lift his freshman year of college quite a bit as well and was running a little bit less, but he inherently is actually probably more well-rounded than I am because he was better at team sports and stuff like that, which goes back to like LTAD. So for you, did you do a lot of, I mean, you said you played basketball. Did you do a lot of other sports?
Not necessarily, but growing up, I grew up playing tackle football with friends. So I'm pretty athletic all around in the majority of sports. You know, I'm a competitor, so I don't know. I just like to get out there and compete.
You were the backyard.
Yeah, I was the backyard. Like I was always playing football. Like I was always outside growing up. Like always outside, active, always doing something.
That's how I was. Isaiah was the same way. We talk about this a lot of the time, how kids are forced to basically do that now. And it's sad, but it is true. And we sound like old timers, but the world has changed so much so quickly. I mean, it's insane. Kids don't play outside. They don't do that sort of stuff anymore. And it's wild. And again, we sound like boomers. We sound like boomers, but it is. I mean, you look at the type of talent though that you see coming up. Everyone's more injury prone. It's insane. Everyone's more injury prone. They don't have the perseverance to train or have fun with it. Even they don't have fun with it. That's the biggest issue. They don't have fun with it. If you're not enjoying it and having fun, like I enjoy high jump. I like soaring over the bar. I like dunking.
Right.
It's fun to me. I feel like most kids don't enjoy it. Like they don't have fun. And it's a different type of clay. You don't have the same level of talent to work with as a coach. I mean, you as a coach probably see this a lot. I mean, you're working in person with a lot of these 8th grade.
Oh.
So, I mean, do you see that often now, the difference between you and them? Like, what is that like comparing?
I mean, the main difference for me is I just feel like right now, like where we are within the age of like life, like I feel like it's a lot more saturated overall in the type of talent that's coming up because like growing up, I didn't have the type of training that I'm providing to a lot of these kids.
Yeah.
Like either that's track, basketball, football, any sports all around. So like what it started for me was just fun. Like I just wanted to go outside. I wanted to play. But now it's like, okay, they have these parents that are growing up and they want their kid to be a great athlete. So they send them somewhere to get coaching. So now it turns into almost like
a job.
I don't know. Right, for them, essentially. Like they're just going
Yeah.
to practice as opposed to just, I don't know, going and just doing plyometrics or just running outside.
Right. Like the dunk contests outside with their friends don't happen.
Right. It's not happening. Like they do so much training on the outside that once they get home, they're not outside playing for fun. Like they've already did their fun was training with their coach or going to practice in the evening. So now
Right.
I just feel like that's the main difference.
And
But
it becomes a job. And now it's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to do collegiate sports. I don't want to I don't want
true.
to do any of that stuff.
Like they
It's a
just get
job.
burnt out very young, yeah. Because I have
Yep.
kids as young as maybe like I don't have a kid in elementary, but I see kids in there getting coached and getting trained as young as elementary, you know. And you got
crazy.
someone like me telling them, hey, like, you know, like I'm very like I'm a lead at what I do in my training and how I teach them. So I want everything not to be perfect, but to be for them to come in and work and be coachable, right? So I don't really
Mhm.
necessarily take it easy on the kids. I just want to make sure that they're there, they do things technically right. So like it's just completely different. Like I don't
Yeah.
allow for it to like really go the opposite way, which is like allow them to just play and have a lot of fun. Like it's more so just like we're here, we're coming to get work done, and I'm gonna make you better at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
It's tough. It's a tough balance because you want them to enjoy it, but also you're getting paid to make them better. So it's like
not true.
you're walking this fine line of, okay, you're 13 years old. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you haven't even developed as a person. Your brain isn't even developed, and you're training formally in a manner that is crazy high quality. You don't even know what you're getting. Like you don't even know how good you have it, and you're just like here willy nilly kind of going through it. And I think it just contextually for someone at 13 years old to take all of that information in and make sense of it is probably really difficult. Like, whereas for us, it was like you said, you put a trash can and a mattress on the ground and you're jumping over it to dunk. Like that development is so valuable. I mean, you're a 7'8" high jumper now, you know what I mean? One of the best in the world. And that, how do you teach that? You know what I mean? It's like, you have to have the talent, obviously, but you have to enjoy what you're doing, and you have to have other pieces along the way that kind of line up to let you get to that level. You know, it's not like the best training in the world is great.
Right.
It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned.
Yeah.
So it's so different. But one other thing I didn't end up finishing this about high jump because there are questions about specifics of the technique. You had talked about this running off your penultimate step versus pushing off your penultimate step. Did you change your approach to your penultimate step through high school and then in college? And what is your approach now to it?
I really haven't changed it too much. I still generally push off my penultimate. In high school, I loaded up a lot more than what I do now. In order to jump higher and to jump further away from the bar, you necessarily can't load up as much because you're decelerating and you're killing that centrifugal force that you built to get up and over the bar.
So when you say load up, you mean you would like really lower to the ground, like get really low and try to boom your leg at the takeoff?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Did it
essentially
hurt?
on my best jumps, when I jumped 7.3 and 7.4, I didn't do that. You know what I mean? So
what was the sensations like compared to those two different types of penultimate steps for you?
Uh, it's really just more ground contact time on the penultimate into the takeoff when I pushed off and I loaded up a lot more. So I would say now I'm a lot more consistent on moving off it more efficiently than I
Like
was in the
quicker ground
past.
contact times?
When I'm pushed off of it more
No, so you said
efficiently,
like it's longer ground contact times. You're talking
longer
about when you
time. Yeah.
boom the takeoff, you're saying?
Yeah, when I was loading up off of my penultimate, it was a lot longer ground contact time for me personally because my arms would come through slower. I would push off my penultimate slower. So I was sitting more behind on my hips, and you can't take off until your hip kind of reaches over your foot to toe area, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
it was a
So
lot
your
ground.
stride was like longer, you were lower to
Mhm.
the
I was
ground.
reaching. I
Did you
was
take a
reaching.
long last stride in high school?
I did.
So it was
I
one of
did.
the biggest things, like being cued to be really short on that last like distance between your takeoff leg and your penultimate step and quicker.
It was well, not in high school, no, because my coaches they didn't necessarily grasp that concept, and I didn't either. It was more so just take off, right? It was
Yeah.
just
Just jump
more so
high.
just load up and take off and jump high, right? But now that I'm older and I take off so far away from the bar, I can't just load up and take off because then I will go up and come down directly
Like you
onto the
won't
bar.
penetrate into the pit.
Right, not as much as I need to be able to. But like I said, it was just more so being consistent because if you go back and watch my 7-3 videos in high school or my 7-4 jumps, like I really moved and ran through pretty much more so better off my penultimate than I did at those other jumps where I may have jumped 6'8", 6'10", or 7 foot. So I believe that's something that's very important is to not load up off your penultimate, but to find that medium in between the two of getting enough load off of that to
Like
allow it to.
speed and lowering. Like
Right.
don't you need enough to get the lift, but you also need enough to actually penetrate over the bar
Right, right.
and get the speed into the pit. I always felt that too. Like as someone who dunks, you don't really need speed. You really don't. It's just
Mhm.
straight boom the takeoff. And you don't want to flip. You don't want rotation around the bar. So,
Of
or sorry, like around the like when you dunk, you don't want to rotate at all. You just want to be straight
of
vertical. And
course.
in high jump, you know, you're allowing yourself to kind of dive over. I mean, not dive over it, you know, but you know what I'm saying. You kind of flip over the bar, and
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's just very different. And a lot of people don't understand that concept that don't do high jump and haven't dunked. Like they don't understand the differences. That's kind of one of the reasons why I think people struggle that can dunk well struggle with high jump, and people that
Mhm.
only high jump struggle with dunking because your goal in dunking is stay straight up and down, like get your touch to the peak point, you know, and high jump, that's not necessarily the case. Like what do your arms do when you're high jumping? You said you kind of swim backwards with your left arm, or what do you
Yeah,
do? 'Cause
so
you jump off your right leg.
it's just a double arm action, so it kind of just looks like this.
Right. Do you reach backwards? Like do you reach behind your head with
Uh,
that hand? Or do you kind of reach out to the side?
when I'm jumping into the bar, my arm will go more here, but on my higher bars where I would stay more vertical and I catch the takeoff correctly, my arm would kind of swim up and through around to here to allow
Okay.
myself more time to stay vertical.
And that's the arm close to the bar.
Yes, the left arm.
So you'll kind of keep it away and then swim up and
Mhm.
over. Okay, that's interesting. Here's a good question. Do you ever see guys like their palms kind of down and they reach across? For you, your palm is facing like away from the bar and you kind of
Right,
swim that way. Is that
right.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I think
interesting.
Tim
I never
Berry. I
tried
think
that.
Tim Berry kind of like he kind of like rides the bar along with
Yes.
his arm. Hmm.
Yep, that's a lot of Europeans do that. They'll kind of like reach across it. And I've never really tried the way you kind of do it. Like I feel like I would hurt my shoulder honestly
Right.
because I'm not used to that. Like this feels like reaching
Yeah.
across feels a lot more natural than trying to like swim like that. Like I don't even know. It feels like I'm throwing a baseball with my left arm.
I
In
don't know.
your
That's
case,
just that's just something I've been doing honestly since I was young. Like I said, like I would like to say I've been in the game for a
yeah,
fairly long time. I mean, since out of high school, I've been jumping at a high level and actually been like consistently like putting my everything into track and field.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, you've been doing it quite some
Yeah.
time. I mean, I was in seventh grade, so I was 13. I stopped jumping when I was 26, 20, or high jumping, stopped high jumping when I was 27. So for me, it was 14 years. I never
Hmm.
achieved even close to what you did. And I took off periods of time. You've been going straight since high school, basically since freshman year, right?
Not true. Like I've been going at this since high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a break, which is wild. I mean, it's wild. And super. I mean, for someone that wanted to go to the Olympics and achieve that sort of aspiration, I mean,
You know, what's so crazy is I just remember having those conversations with my cousin, Aaron Adewale. He actually went to college for football and basketball and ended up playing in the NFL. I just
wow.
remember he would tell me about the Olympics. You know, he would tell me about some things that may not be appropriate, but he was like, "Yeah, man, when you go to Olympics, there's going to be, you know, all these girls, woo, woo,
The
this and that."
village, the Olympic
Yeah, like
village.
the Olympic, like the stories about the Olympic Village, and I'm sitting here like I'm in like when I'm in like 10th grade, I'm a junior, and I'm just like, wow, like, you know, I can't even fathom the thought of even going to the Olympics at this point. Like, I don't know where my life is going to take me. I don't know where it's going to carry me. Like, I want to believe this is before the time I even jumped 6'10". This is when I was aspiring to being a collegiate athlete. But he's just telling me, I'm like, man, yeah, that would be crazy to go to the Olympics. Now look at me, you know,
Then
I
you
was in
did
the
it.
2020 Olympics, I didn't experience too much, but still
Yeah,
had it.
yeah. All the rumors were a lie. Everything was a lie. It was all a lie.
Nah, it was all a lie. Hey, during COVID, it was definitely all a lie. We was on lockdown. We were on
Wow,
lock.
that is the saddest thing in the world. Don't worry, Daryl. There's always 2024.
But that's not my focus though. That's not my
I know,
focus.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. We goof off a lot on the podcast. We kept it pretty serious this one because
Uh-huh.
I'm like super curious. There's a lot of stuff I
Okay,
wanted to ask you and take advantage of the time. But
of
yeah,
course.
yesterday's podcast, bro, I don't even know what happened. It was something else. Yeah. So I guess on the high jump part, because I think one of the most interesting things to me is two things. One, something I couldn't do is generate that twisting momentum, like
Right.
twisting and getting your hips level above the
Hmm.
bar. And you had talked about this, like your hip mobility being not the best. And then the second is setting up the penultimate step and coming in the penultimate step. So two things on that. One, when you're coming into the curve, is there anything drastic that you do or notice in terms of your rhythm and acceleration into it? And how do you contact your penultimate step and take off in terms of like where your foot is relative to your hips? Do you try to contact, let's start with the curve. Do you accelerate through the curve, would you say? Or how
Yes,
do
I
you treat
mean,
it?
like I said, like one of the most important things within the high jump, within any running event, is establishing your rhythm. You want to be your fastest and your most comfortable when you reach your takeoff spot, right? That's where you want
Mhm.
it to be your fastest, but not too fast to where you blow through the bar, you can't control it. Like you have to find that nice medium in between the two.
Right. So for you, that rhythm is making sure you're not too fast, too early, because then you're going to decelerate,
Right.
or making sure you're too slow and don't accelerate enough, because then you're obviously
Hmm.
not at your top speed. So in terms of the penultimate step, do you contact on the heel, or do you contact flat foot, or do you contact on the ball of the foot?
I really never thought about this.
Don't answer it then if you never thought about it. Do you
I would
contact?
actually really like to say that I'm more so contacting the ball of my foot, but my whole foot ends up like touching the ground, right? So I push the majority through the ball of my foot, but my whole foot makes contact with the
Right.
ground.
So you're pushing through the ball of the foot, but your heel probably touches the ground. Do
Yes.
you actively think about pushing backwards, or do you think about grabbing? Because this is kind of a concept some high jumpers will talk about on the penultimate step.
Pushing, but I could see where the concept of grabbing would be very beneficial. I may have to try that out.
No, don't. No. Hey, dude, I'm just asking. I'm just curious. So
Right.
you'll push off of it. You'll kind of
Hmm.
actively push. You actively will push backwards. Does that
Right.
feel like a long push, like you're on a scooter almost, or does it feel like a plyo type push where it's like hitting the ground, like quick stabby, kind of like just push back really hard, or is it like more of a squat? How does it feel
Um,
on your best jumps?
right. It just really just feels like a plyometric on my best jumps. Like I'm really pushing and I'm not wasting any time. Like I'm pushing, next thing you know, my foot is down, my takeoff foot is down, and I'm up and over the bar.
So it's like a very quick push off that
It's
penultimate
a
step.
very quick push off movement. Now, on the other end of that, there's been jumps where it was more so long, which also I would spend longer. It's longer ground tech time on the bar, on the ground. My fault, and then it's just a long takeoff. So that's not
Yeah.
really that feel
So you
like
kind of
takeoff.
pop, you'll try to push, but it's like a quick kind of like
Mhm.
just like a pop off of it. Like is a pop
Right.
a good word to describe how fast it is off
Yeah,
that penultimate step?
it is. Yeah,
Because like
it's
in
kind
dunking, it feels like a roll. For me, it feels like a
of,
rolling sensation in dunking. Like my
I mean,
penultimate step
honestly,
rolls through the ground
I would
and it's
honestly call it
fast.
like almost a roll as well.
Yeah. I don't actively like push. It's like a rolling sensation. And that's what like
Uh-huh.
lowers me. And it's really fast. On the best jumps, it's really quick, but it still is an inherently longer contact relative to every other contact.
No, definitely.
Is that how it feels for you as well?
Coming off the penultimate.
Yeah, like is it more of like the way I would describe it for me is more like a rolling sensation. I don't think about it too much anymore because
Right.
it honestly, if I think about it too much, it kind of messes me up.
I feel
But
like the
it's more
rolling
rhythm. For me,
sensation-
rhythm is like what sets up everything. Like if my rhythm's good,
Sure.
then I'm gonna jump high. But that when I first started doing it, I always was cued rolling sensation, never
Mhm.
really pushing or anything like that. So that's how I always did it. Now I can actively lower. I know how to lower. I know how to take a longer stride. On dunking, it's like I do get way lower to the ground. It just inherently because I'm trying to go straight up. In
And
high
I
jump, though, I always
understand.
really struggled.
I
I
feel
could
like,
never raise my hips up enough, I feel like. But on my best jumps, my hips were definitely high.
of course, yeah, no doubt. I feel like the rowing sensation definitely makes sense with the dunking, and the same thing can be said for high jump. If you don't stay as tall and you allow your hips to sink into the ground, right? But like you said
Right.
on your jumps, it was more so not like almost a rolling. It was, but it wasn't
It's like
as
fast.
profound.
It felt like
Right.
tappy. It felt tappy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that, that. Like that's the only
No,
way I could describe it.
yeah.
I was wondering if it's the same for elites because I'm like, man, I jump 6'6", 6'7". These
I
guys
would
jump
say
7'7". Like, do they have the same sensations I do?
I would say it's
Like,
more so like a push, like on them best and them highest jumps where everything just happens so fast. It's more so like a push off the penultimate into the takeoff,
how
as opposed
quick? Like, could you give me a
to
word of like onomatopoeia that would best describe? Is it pop? Is it push? Is it
Mhm.
tap? Like, which word would best describe it?
I would say push for me, honestly.
Right. That's good.
I would say pushing and staying like tall in a way through through the penultimate, right? So you talked about the curve, and one thing about the curve when I jump to my best 233 is the way I initiate my curve. So is the way I set up my curve off of my fourth step because I run an 8 and 8 approach. So I
So you go
walk in,
4 on the curve.
right. So I walk in, I focus on getting tall after my first two steps. And then 3 and 4 are kind of like just getting prepared. I'm upright, hips are underneath me, I'm
Mhm.
comfortable. And then my next 3 and 4 are kind of like getting set up and initiating for the curve and trying to feel that lean and create that. You don't necessarily have to create that centrifugal force, but
Right.
you have to make sure you run along that curve correctly to help create and make that centrifugal force to get up and over the bar.
Right. What's interesting in what you just said too is like how you take a 4 and 4 because most guys do a 5 and you do
Yeah.
4 and you're a lot more narrow. Like your curve is tighter, isn't it?
No, yeah, it is. It is just based on the way my coach he coaches the high jump.
Do you feel better on a more narrow curve or do you feel like you feel better on a wider curve? What feels like you get the rotation and positions and physics better of the jump,
I would
the
have
feel
to
of the
say
jump?
narrow. I mean, physics wise, like my coach is saying that you have to be stronger and you create more energy running a narrow
Yeah.
curve.
Yep.
So I would agree with the narrow curve. I mean, in high school I came from a wider curve. It's just two completely different ways I feel like of jumping in the way you attack the bar. Because if you run a wider approach, I would believe that when you plant, your foot is more parallel to the bar. And then the narrower your approach, my foot is more so angled
I
towards
feel
the
like I
back.
don't penetrate into the pit if I'm not narrow enough. And as someone who pops up really high for me, the
Mm-hmm.
narrower I am, the better it allows me to penetrate into the pit because that was my biggest difficulty. I would ride the bar and
Mm-hmm.
come down on it instead of like penetrating into the middle of the pit. You know what I'm saying? So if I was wider, I would not be able to get deep enough into the pit. So I always had to move in a little bit closer to the bar, you know,
Right.
to like get my narrower curve so I was able to take off, still get my back to the bar, but also penetrate into the pit. That's how it felt for me.
Right. Because I feel like from more of like coming from a narrow curve into your takeoff, you create more of like
Yeah, that
that
straight ahead
twisting,
momentum.
the twisting action, like creating that I want to call it the horizontal into to vertical speed or velocity, whatever you want to call it. Creating you actually can create more centrifugal force into the bar from a narrower approach than a
Right.
wider.
Do you find it easier to twist and get your back to the bar from a narrower approach or a wider approach?
Definitely a narrower approach because, like I said, that energy is something that is created. As opposed to from a wider approach, I feel like you almost have to create that more of the rotation in front of the bar in order to get up and over.
Right.
With,
Yeah, that makes more sense. Like it's like you just inherently want to jump almost like across the bar.
Like, true. Yeah, you ride a lot more down the bar than you would a narrower approach.
Yeah, but it's also a lot of force on your ankle to probably come from a
Not true.
narrower
You have to
one.
be a lot the stronger. Yeah, you have to be pretty strong to come from a narrow approach. Like in high school, I came from a wide approach, which also led to me, I believe, loading up as much as I was because I could afford to taking off closer to the bar.
Right.
Narrow approach. But like I said, on them best jumps, hips were high. I trusted my rhythm, and I just moved off my penultimate into my takeoff, and everything was just pretty much like it's crazy. Like how those little minute differences can
Dude,
make.
they make such a
Like,
difference. It's crazy.
nah,
High jump's so different than dunking. It
nah,
is so different. I mean, dunking, you could do 80% of it wrong and still pop off if you're a beast. That's just how it is.
you know that's where I feel like I actually established how I came off my penultimate was dunking, right? I was never
Yeah.
one to run off my penultimate. Like my toe always grazes the track or the
Same.
ground. And so like going into the high jump, like I was pretty much out there just running and jumping, like dunking, like trying to dunk the ball, something like I feel like you're dunking the ball. So that's what I did. So over time, like I had to, it took
Change
time to like really, yeah.
So you'd say the biggest transitions are you had to learn to keep your hips higher and make that last step really short.
Nah, true. And just move through my penultimate as opposed to sitting on it.
Yeah. I bet dunking would probably not help your high jump based on what you're describing because it's going to teach you new bad habits. Like it sets up a good context of how to jump high, but then it's like a needle. If you take it too far towards like what dunking is, you're not going to end up rotating and getting the lift and the speed that you need off the takeoff, I feel like.
No,
you see what I'm saying?
No,
like dunking's like you just pop straight up, versus like high jump, you got to flip over the bar,
I agree. But I believe it can also be beneficial because I know there is a lot of high jumpers actually back in the day that would just go to the gym. I don't know if it's as true today, but back in the day, that's how a lot of high jumping, right? Just going in the gym and dunking. I mean, it makes sense.
Man, honestly. I'll tell you what, Daryl, I've only been dunking. I'm gonna go to the track, and if I'm not better, I'll debunk it because I definitely am jumping higher right now.
That would be really interesting to see if, like, after not having done it for a few years, if you would jump.
If I would jump higher, or if I would jump far worse. I have no idea, honestly. I really don't know. I will. Try it. Yeah, I will. Let me make sure
it's when you're feeling good.
Yeah, when I'm feeling ready, I'm feeling good. It all comes back.
We got to get you on the track, Isaiah. We got to see how high you can jump, man.
I've actually always been super curious.
Off 2 feet, though.
Off 2 feet, what I could high jump. I think that would be really interesting to see.
I mean, we know it's illegal, but just out of curiosity, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think, Daryl?
Man, that's a tough one. Definitely 6+. Like,
do you ever see the guy from Kansas jump over 7 off 2?
I haven't.
There's a video of it. It's pretty crazy. He jumped higher off 2 than he did off 1.
I want to say, Isaiah, you could at least go 2 meters and above.
Yeah.
What was your box jump?
When I did high jump for a little bit my senior year, and I did 6.2 off 1. And that was when I was like barely dunking off 1.
Okay.
So I think I don't know what I could do off 1 now. I don't think it would be that much higher, but off 2, I think I could pull out some freaky numbers.
Okay.
I think so too. I think off 1 you could go 2 meters.
I mean, the biggest problem.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, but do you know Jordan Kilgannon?
Blue hair guy. Blue hair
dog. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he had a video. This was years ago. This was probably like 2014. And after a 2-hour dunk session, he went to a high jump mat and he scissor kicked 6'6", off 2 feet. Off 2 feet, he did that. So, like seeing that he was able to do that, and I know I jump higher than him right now compared to then. Like I think I could definitely do 2 meters plus.
No, you definitely could, no doubt. Off of 6'6".
Yeah.
How tall is he?
6'1".
He's built like me, Daryl.
No, he's a pretty slim guy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Are you saying I'm fat?
No, I'm playing. You got some
I'm just playing.
You got some.
No, he's my back is definitely like more muscular than most high jumpers for sure. But I'd say Jordan is like his upper body is actually like his biceps and triceps and shoulders are actually bigger than mine for sure. His back is probably not as big. His chest is definitely bigger. His legs are not bigger than mine. Like his quads, I think, are probably smaller. But dude,
No, Jordan has big quads.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I only see below his knee.
Yeah, probably.
Not all. Yeah, I was gonna. Not all of us are that intimate with Jordan, Isaiah. Not all of us have seen his quads the way you have, I guess. You guys are boys or whatever you are. Anyways, so I told you we fuck around on the podcast. This is something I actually wanted to ask you about training specifically. So talk about your weight room maxes and then plyos. How do you feel about how each of them make you jump and respond?
Right. I mean, I think strength is like a very important component of my training, just for me and my body type. So the stronger I am, the more loaded I am, the higher and better, honestly, I feel on the track. So,
Right.
and plyometrics wise, I think plyometrics also play a big part in reducing that ground contact time and just allowing your muscles and your joints to just be more elastic. You know what I mean? So,
What are your best maxes for power clean and half squat? Let's say half squat and quarter squat.
Like 90 degrees.
Let's say like parallel.
Okay, parallel. I don't really actually have like a parallel. I want to say like, because at Tennessee we didn't really go parallel, but we did like a 3 rep max a little bit above, and I was getting 425. But at parallel, like I said, my hip mobility isn't the greatest, so probably around like 405 is like my greatest. So once I get down in that 90, like it's really tough for me to drive up.
Right.
So
So
I
when you
would
say
say
90, you mean like true 90 at
like
the
I mean
the knee?
like a true 90 is
like a third squat?
Is around 400 is a 90 degree.
Okay, like parallel.
Yeah.
You're saying parallel.
Parallel.
Okay. So then what about like a quarter squat? What do you think you could do?
Quarter squat, I'm probably
all of
going
it
500 plus.
I'm not surprised. Do you jump with it? Can you like get the bar bouncing? Are you that powerful in that quarter squat position?
Like,
do you move it fast? Like 500
no, yeah,
fast?
definitely. Like I said, like I don't have great like internal external rotation. So like when I get deep into that 90, like it's like I can't really like engage.
Oh,
like
I feel you. I don't have
muscle.
any of that.
So like in a quarter squat position or like anything really above 90, like I can move the weight pretty efficient. But once I hit that zone, like it's tough for me to drive up. Like I hate it.
I 100% agree. I feel the exact same way. But hey,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing is working out for you, Dale. So,
right, of course.
And then what about power clean? What is your max in power clean?
My max right as of right now is 285, but I can definitely clean upwards of 300. It's just a matter of catching it and stabilizing.
Yeah, I agree.
Once I get it up, so 285 is my official power clean max.
And you probably caught it high. Like you catch it in like a quarter squat.
Yeah,
probably.
I catch it pretty high. Like I don't like with 300, I got it up to here, but I didn't really get my elbows through, and I just fell forward and dropped.
I mean, that's a lot of weight to catch forward. If you catch it forward, it's gonna pull you forward. So your max is pretty close to Isaiah's.
Actually, what the strength coach was saying is that I actually pulled 300 pretty high, and it just came up and kind of just dropped down on my shoulders. Instead of it being 300, it more so felt like I was catching maybe like 340 or 350. He was saying.
Right. So it's almost like the weight is above your shoulders and falling on you. It has a downward momentum when it's hitting your shoulders. The same thing happens to me, but at 195. Not 300.
That's actually when I was last year, because I was at 285 was my max, and I was plateaued there for literally like a year. And it was the same thing. Like I would catch it high enough, and then the weight would just drop me like instantly as soon as it would hit my shoulders, and I would just dump it every time.
Yeah.
Do you have any other lifts that you're like, I am so good at this lift. I love this lift. This is my favorite lift. Like any others that you really do that you're really good at? Like hip thrust, RDL, anything like that?
Split jerk.
Split jerk?
Split jerk. Yeah.
What is your best split jerk?
300.
You can split jerk 300?
I was doing
what?
I did 245 yesterday in the weight room, and my back is a little sore today because I was trying to show out.
I can't believe you split jerked that.
like I said, like growing up, like I had a best friend who got into football and he was a year older than me. So when he started getting stronger, I wanted to get stronger too. So I'm bench pressing going out throughout high school, doing push-ups in my room, sit-ups. And I don't know, like having a decently sized upper body has just always been like something for me. Like I put on that weight like pretty easily in my upper body. So I think it's just a combination of like driving out of like more so what would be that quarter squat
Yeah.
position and being
Right.
able to have the stabilization just in between, like just my core
Your
overall.
your arms are just like strong enough too to
Yeah, yeah.
withstand that weight. Because most high jumpers could never
You
put
know,
that weight
most
over their.
high jumpers don't got this on them. You know,
That's right, baby. Most
so
high
I'm not
jumpers don't have an Olympic logo on their bicep. Neither
That's
do
a
I.
sick tattoo, by the way.
you, man. And I got the other one. You gotta strive for greatness as well.
That's
So,
great.
so
Bro, if I were you, I'd probably put the Olympic logo all over my body. Like I'd have it on my forehead. I'd be like, I want everyone to know that I went to the Olympics.
no, I saw some people that had the Olympic logo on his neck, but he was also tatted up pretty crazy. So I don't think it would look as good
One
on me.
one of the
So
reasons I want dunking to become an Olympic sport one day is so I could get that tat.
That's the only
I
reason why.
I honestly think dunking like it should be in the Olympics. If you asking me,
Yeah, that's actually one of our really big goals is like we're trying to get like a official scoring system and all that stuff. We
Mhm.
actually, I don't know if you know, like 3v3 basketball was in the Olympics.
FIBA.
Yeah, FIBA
Like
I
FIBA
do,
3.
I do.
So they tried to get dunking also to get approved as a sport for the Olympics. And the biggest thing that was actually stopping it is that there wasn't like female representation for dunking. So one of the big things we're trying to do right now is get low rim dunking really big and get females to like participate in that. Um, but I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic. Hopefully within the next like 10, 15 years that can actually be a thing.
Not true. I mean,
You
now
know,
that'd be
at
that'd be
that
tough.
point, Daryl, I'm gonna pull you over to the dark side. You're gonna be a dunker, and we're gonna make you one of the best ever. At that point, that's what's gonna happen.
I don't know. Isaiah might have something to say about that one.
Don't worry, don't worry.
I will
I
say some of the best dunkers in recent years have come from a track background. Like it's usually like
Okay.
guys that high jump, long jump, triple jumped, and then usually like I would say like at the tail end of the careers they just try to either it's at the tail end of their careers they get bored of it like they switch over to dunking because I don't know it transfers so easily. Like it's the same training, all you have to learn is technique for
Yeah,
dunking. That's easy.
and as long as you have a basketball background, like you can dribble a basketball. That's
Hey,
also a great.
basketball, and dunking was my first love.
There we go.
It was my first.
We're taking
So
him. We're taking him to the next level. Let's go.
And I'm gonna ask you a question. We've been asking everybody that has a 45 and up vertical has answered this question a certain way. Was there a period of time in your life where you jumped every day?
of course, no doubt.
There we go. He
Like
still
like
jumps every day.
like I'm telling you, y'all do not understand like how much I jumped in my earlier years growing up. My best friend, there was a basketball hoop right across the street. I would be outside from sun up to sundown, dunking, like literally like putting the rim up, putting the rim down. Like we'd be outside playing 1v1, v1. I'm pretty sure y'all played it too, like 21,
Yeah.
32. And we'd just be
Yes.
out there dunking on each other, just having dunk contests. So like literally that was me every day. And I literally can attest to that's the reason I'm able to jump as high as I can today, because it was just all repetition, all neurological. Like it was just formed
Yeah.
from when I was young.
And
So
I feel like that's gonna be an Instagram clip right there.
Yeah. What's the timestamp here? It's 9:28. I don't have a timestamp anywhere, but yeah, that is absolutely true. It's crazy. There's so many people that are like that just like don't. There's so many people like that have crazy verticals, and there's so many people that don't listen and don't know like how valuable that period of time
It's
is.
literally, I feel like it's so
Everyone.
100% of the guys that we've talked to that jump 45 inches or higher have jumped every day, usually during their developmental years. Like
no, it's
literally without fail. Like everybody's done it.
like nowadays it's becoming more prevalent. Like when you see John Morant and what his training was growing up, like his dad would say, "Oh, I had him doing 400, 500 box jumps every day after practice." Like
Which is
that stuff
madness.
works. Like it makes a
Yeah.
difference. What you do in your developmental years, especially from an athletic standpoint, will set you up to like what you're capable of like in your later years.
Right. I think what's crazy too is just jumping is like Ja Morant wasn't necessarily dunking 500 times. But he was jumping.
True.
And jumping,
Right.
just max effort jumping will make you better at jumping.
He was just
And
training his neurological system
yeah,
to
he's just training. And even
yeah.
if it is not the perfect setup, like I don't go out and do 500 box jumps ever in a session, but the fact that he's out there just jumping in general is going to be valuable. Actually,
No.
we'll end on this question because I know you got to go, Daryl.
What time?
It is 9:30 my time, so it's 11:30 your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
know.
right.
It's crazy. You got to go soon. Sorry about that. Last question. What is your favorite plyometric? Top 2 favorite plyometrics you felt helped you the most in high jump?
Dunking.
I'm ready to go jump 7 foot, Daryl. If I don't go out and jump 7 foot my first day after dunking 2 to 3 times a week for the last year and a half.
No, I would definitely say dunking. Like I really enjoy touch jumps and hurdle hops as well. I mean, like touch jumps and dunking are kind of like one and the same, right?
Yes.
But I also really enjoy hurdle hops and box jumps. But dunking is definitely
when you say box jumps, do you mean like jumping up to something, or do you mean like depth jumps, like just stepping off and jumping?
Actually, so it could be box jumps and just jumping onto a box, but also I really enjoy depth jumps over a hurdle as well.
Right.
So just allowing yourself to step down, absorb that load, and convert that upward force as fast as possible.
Correct. I like that. That's
a fun one. That is a fun one.
I used to do them, but I don't jump 7 foot, so but I do dunk a lot.
Nah, yeah. I mean, what were you doing in your earlier years, your younger years, man? Like
you talk about me or Isaiah? Me, I loved basketball. I love basketball. I did high jump. Like I was a basketball player, whatever else, like growing up. I did every sport. And then I started to specialize in track my sophomore year of high school. So basically similar to you, played basketball all the way through freshman year and then did track my sophomore year, started training, doing plyos and stuff like that when I was like 13, 14. I didn't really low rim as much as I should. Just with my cousin on the weekends when I was with him, we'd always low rim. There's always that connection to the cousin, man. My brother and I and my cousin, we just low rim and it was fun. We loved it. I always wanted to be better at dunking, but I never really dunked as much as like you and probably Isaiah. I did a lot of plyos though, 13, 14, okay. So many plyos, and then started lifting and then just high jump, man. I jumped every day when I was in 8th grade and I honestly kind of messed up my back. That's when it started because I was jumping every day. So that was probably my period of jumping every day was high jump actually. Okay. And honestly, I think it probably didn't help that I was that specific that early. So that's mine.
Okay. And Isaiah, I mean, for me, like growing up, always watching Dunkademic's video in high school, like there was a point in my life where I aspired to be where you're at. So like, how did that start for you?
So I was obsessed with basketball and I wanted to go to the NBA. So I was practicing 3-4 hours every single day.
Who was your favorite
player? Michael Jordan by far.
LeBron was mine. LeBron is mine.
yeah, definitely Jordan.
So guys, who's better?
You already know who's better. Come on now, don't act.
Michael Jordan, right? No, I'm playing.
I actually think LeBron's the GOAT for sure.
Oh, yeah. It has been said.
Yeah. Respect. But yeah, I was obsessed with basketball, but I also did a ton of sports. Like I played football, baseball, like I did wrestling for a bit, messed around with track and field. Like I just love playing every sport. And then dunking, I got obsessed with it. So I didn't even know pro dunking was a thing until I think my junior year. That's when I found out about like Dunkademics, Team Flight Brothers, and all these dunkers. And then that's when I just started dunking every day around that time because I was obsessed with it. Like I loved doing it. And then at a certain point, I started realizing I probably wasn't going to be playing basketball and that I liked dunking more. So that's when I just went full in. Like soon as senior year of basketball season ended, I just completely dropped basketball and just went all in on the dunking and I was posting literally everything on YouTube, Instagram, and that type of stuff. And I started getting a following just because of my progress. Like I went from my first dunk to being able to do a between the legs dunk in like 9 months or something like that.
Yeesh.
So people were just like, holy shit, like that's some crazy, crazy progress. And then yeah, got invited to my first event, won it, and the rest is history.
Dude,
No,
so
that's tough.
Yeah.
specimen. All
No,
right,
one
well,
thing.
go ahead, Daryl. I was gonna say,
Say
and
one
after this,
thing
I'll
like
let you go.
all right, one thing that like I definitely like 2 foot jumping is different. Like I've never really been a 2 foot jumper, even growing up. Like I have friends that are able to jump higher than me off of 2 feet. So like what you do is incredible for real, like no doubt.
Yeah. It's crazy because I feel like I could have been way better at 1 foot, but 1 foot just always hurt my knee.
No, I
Like,
understand. Like
yeah. So that's one of the biggest reasons I just decided on 2 foot because I was like, man, this 1 foot stuff is way too painful. Like I think I remember we had a high jump meet in 8th grade. And I remember my knee felt like it was gonna explode. Like because obviously one high jump is all off one.
mhm.
So after that, I was like, man, I'm just gonna stick to 2 feet.
Yeah, I think we all can. That hits close to home, you know.
So I got a question. I know we got to get this over with, but
No,
like
I look, Daryl. If you want to stay on the podcast, you cut it off. I don't know when you have. When do you have to go?
man, I usually have practice at 12, but coach isn't here right now, so I can spare a little bit of time.
I
Let's
got
go.
I got specifically like 7 minutes because I have to take my dog
Oh,
to the vet.
Let's
So
go at
he took.
7
Let's
minutes.
be clear. He took his dog to the vet yesterday, but it was
and
the wrong day.
I got the days wrong.
But go ahead, Daryl.
So,
I want to hear what
so
you have.
for me, like I've always been a 1 foot jumper, and I would just always think to myself, like, damn, like this dunking stuff would be so much easier if I could like really take off a two. Like, what would both of you say like to
I
that? Like, what
think
would be
I
your
agree
opinion?
with that. Okay, so Isaiah, you go first. I know we
All
have
right.
different opinions, sort of.
Yeah. Um. So a lot of dunkers I know, some of the really really good dunkers, started off as 1 foot jumpers
Mhm.
and then transitioned to 2 feet, usually because of injuries. So Jordan Kilgannon, right? It's the most followed dunker of all time.
Mhm.
Arguably the GOAT. He started off as a 1 footer and he kept spraining his ankle every time he would jump off one. So he just started practicing off two. There's another dunker from Poland, Lepek. He did a ton of 1 foot jumps in the beginning, eventually transitioned to two. Guy Dupuis, same thing. Jordan Sutherland's starting to. He's another one. His Instagram is literally 1 foot god, and he's
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
to do and he's starting to do 2 foot. So I honestly, just from anecdotally, just having seen it, like I think it's a transition that a lot of guys can make.
Mhm.
I will say it's just you also got to get really freaking strong, but you have the strength levels for it though, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I think if you like just started jumping off two, like you would be able to transition into that.
That would be
Um,
an interesting thing. For
yeah.
technically speaking, though, Isaiah, which one do you think is easier or harder? Which
Mm.
one is easier to do harder dunks, like higher score dunks?
I haven't. I think 1 foot's easier for technique, man.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that. I think you're crazy. And if you talk to most 1 foot guys who have done both, they'll be like 2 foot's so much easier.
It's so much. I just think about how easy it is. My vertical off one's like 12 inches lower.
Mm.
Actually,
That's
no,
not
10,
true. That's
10
not true.
inches, 10
No,
inches.
that's not true.
So what does that make your 1 foot? What does that make your 1 foot vertical?
Uh, I tested right at a 40 off one.
I
That's
thought you hit
still
41.
Was it 41?
I thought you did.
It might have been 41. I just remember I was hyped when I got to the 40. I don't remember what I tested after that. But I've tested 50.5 off 2 feet, and then I've tested 40, maybe 41 off one. And I don't know, it's way easier for me to hit dunks off one that I would struggle with the same vertical off two.
If you had a 40-inch vertical, you don't think you could East Bay easy with your hands?
I could East Bay, but it wouldn't be as like I don't know. 1 foot you can start the
Okay, but
motion way sooner.
East Bay is
true.
also a different dunk. East Bay is also a different dunk. I will say this. This is my opinion on it, and I'll fight this till the day I die. Certain dunks are easier off one. Certain dunks are easier off two. Spins are easier off two. So 360
Yeah.
East Bay, reverse 360 East
No,
Bay,
no
360
doubt.
behind the back. Reverse 360 behind the back is easier. Under both is easier. Under 360 under both is easier. East Bay off one is easier. Regular East Bay is easier. Like a 360 East Bay off two is almost as hard as a regular East Bay off two. Like there are like some people hit a 360 East Bay like right after they hit an East Bay because they're better. They jump higher when they kind of allow themselves to rotate a little bit, like spin. Mm-hmm. So I think that those dunks are easier off two. East Bay is harder off two relative to 1 foot. Behind the back, I think is easier off 2 foot than it is off one. I think two-handers are easier off 2 feet. So basically what's easier off 1 foot is a one-hander. Well, I don't even know if that's easier per se, but like throw-ins are easier. I'll say that. East Bays. And that's about it. I mean, I can't think of like I guess a Tamala, because if by our definition, Isaiah, our new definition, Tamala is easier and double East Bay is technically easier. But outside of that, I can't think of anything else that's like truly distance dunks. Distance dunks are easier. I think windmills are easier off two.
I don't know, man. Because I'm thinking like 180 East Bay. I think that's easier than off one. Yeah.
Oh, if you come from the baseline?
Yeah.
No, I could see that for sure.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. But that dunk is basically just an East Bay. People score.
Well, definitely 3 spins are harder.
It's like the higher the level you are, the easier. Like you're gonna score better and more easily with 2 foot, unless you're really creative off one, like Sutherland is. Like Sutherland, what makes him so nasty is the fact that he can spin off of one, which is so, pardon my language, fucking difficult. That because he can do that and he can still windmill, he can 360 windmill and he can 360 cut. Like he does all these crazy cuff spin dunks off one. Like that's why he scores so well. But and he can do anything that's an East Bay variation, he's gonna be able to do. So either a J Rich, a Tamala, or an East Bay variation with a one-hand or two-hand finish and a 180, he can do super well, right? But 360s, he's not going to be able to get points for that. So that takes away 180 degrees of, like outside of his switch hand, like the windmill, you know. But he doesn't. You know under both is really hard, I think, for him, isn't it?
I think I do agree with you, but you know why? Specifically for contest, 1-footers have it way easier.
Great.
Is because they can just stack up 8 people bent over.
That's a problem with the system.
And then jump distance and do the most basic dunk. Like you could just do a regular windmill or an East Bay jumping over people, and like you're gonna score high.
He did it for Zach
years. Levine. The reason Zach Levine and Aaron Gordon, like Zach Levine, just could abuse all different kinds of distance dunks.
Distance dunks, I will say, that's another one.
I feel like those were tough though.
Yeah.
So it's like you basically, the equivalent to a 360, you're saying, in terms of points, is distance, and distance scores more points than 360 variations.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you get the benefit of jumping over people. I agree with that. I think in terms of like a purist, like if you're a purist like we are, I think the more difficult dunks are easier off two. But if you're just going for points and you're in a contest and you can abuse, like if I learned how to jump over people, I could do contests, because I could, if I learned how to do cuff windmills and jump over people bent over, had a good distance dunk, and let's say an East Bay off a handoff, like I'm good.
The best dunk contest dunker of all time, Guy Dupuis. He literally had 3 dunks: windmill, behind the back, East Bay,
all distance.
He would do it over one person one time, then he would do another one over 3 people, then it would be like over an obstacle, and it was just those 3 dunks.
But it's the same dunks.
Yeah,
Daryl, it's like, I'm trying to think of a high jump comparison, but it's very difficult.
The name doesn't ring a bell, but I've probably done seen some of his dunking videos before.
Yeah, you've definitely seen Guy. It's like it looks like Guy Dupuis, like when you read it.
It's on Instagram. He's the real frequent flyer.
You can Google it real quick, and then
you said, what's his name? Go. What's his name?
The frequent flyer.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Yeah. I have seen.
I'm about to screen share here real quick.
This could be you, Daryl. This could be you.
So, Yeah, I know who he is. So one more question I have. So if I got off of one, y'all think I got off of two like that with
I
practice?
you won't know till you try. Some guys really struggle off 2 foot that jump off one because their tendons are so stiff that it's hard for them to load their legs the same way that they do off of 1 foot.
So
So,
does
and your hips are really, and sometimes hip tightness makes it tough too. But
true.
some guys, it doesn't matter. They can just bounce off of it. Their technique looks whack, but they can still jump really high.
Mhm. So does your vertical off of two, standing two, have any correlation between your running vert and what you'd be able to do?
No, I don't think so. I think it's irrelevant. I mean, it has a little correlation because the correlation falls off as you get better at 2 foot approach jumping and 1 foot
Right.
approach jumping.
True,
It's
true.
closer when you're not as good. Like there are, but like past a 43-inch vertical, I'd say off or past like a 43 to 44-inch vertical off an approach, that relationship, in my opinion, falls off heavily. So once you
Mhm.
hit that like 43, 44, it's a totally different skill to keep getting better at standing vertical than it is approach vertical. Because my standing vertical, I think at one point was like 39 and my approach vertical was lower off two. Off two, my approach vertical was lower. But
Okay.
my 1 foot, I'm now hitting at the time my 1 foot was worse actually. I was good at high jump, but could not dunk. And like I said,
Jumping six,
I
dunking.
I was six that I crushed a 6'4" jump. I'm talking it was like a 6'8" equivalent jump at 6'4", and I almost exploded my ankle. Did not jump for literally 2 years. High jump. I just trained. I just got really strong. Came out, jumped 6'4" to meet on turf. No, wait. It was on like concrete. It was like that hard ass indoor
I know what
surface.
you're talking about. Yeah.
It's like basketball court. Jumped 6'4". I like just destroyed 6'4", cleared it by several inches. Usually I struggled to even clear it at all. Best jump, felt totally different. Don't even know how I did it to this day. But like could not dunk off 1 foot at the time to save my life because I wasn't dunking. So, but then once I started dunking regularly, my high jump got worse. My dunking got better. My off vert got worse. So on 2 foot, I was terrible. When I started practicing 2 foot off approach, that got better. My standing vertical was shit. My approach vertical off one was still pretty good, but not as good as its all time best. When I was really good at off vert, I was bad at anything off the approach. So that's how I am. Isaiah, what is your experience?
My off vert has improved slightly, but not a lot. Like as I've jumped higher, my off vert has gone up a tiny, but not at the same rate. My 2 foot has gone
Right.
up. Like
Okay.
my best standing vertical has been 37.5.
All
I
right.
mean,
That gives
Stephen Holmes had like a 24-inch standing vertical, but his approach is obviously over 50. Like off one.
he's different. Stephen Holmes is definitely different. Because my standing, I would say, is around like maybe 35. Nothing
Yeah.
crazy.
I think
I feel
power
like
jumpers have better off vert than speed jumpers. Like any of the European speed jumpers I've ever seen have terrible off vert. Terrible. They jump 230, but their off vert is like 20, 21,
honestly,
24.
Daryl, hearing that you have a 35 standing and then you're a power jumper, I feel like you could low key be a freaky 2 footer.
I think so
I think
too.
it would. I think it would take. I think if you practice, it would take like a month or two.
Right.
But I think you could become a freaky 2 footer.
Well, because the
And
main problem now, like coming off a 2 foot, is just the technique of it, right? Bringing
yeah,
speed, really not bringing any type of speed, and like coming off my penultimate into my two, which I've watched the videos. Like I'm just not comfortable with doing that because that's just nothing I've ever did before. But I would say since I've gotten older and trained with this my new coach and strength levels have risen, like I can definitely get up off a two, but I'm not bringing any speed into it at all,
like you
really.
don't use any technique. You're just raw power.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to bring speed into it and then go up off it because I ain't no telling what's gonna happen.
I will say this too. you, dude, your leg might just rupture into pieces. Of the 2 foot, you might just all of a sudden you do a penultimate step and boom, you just explode. Um, no, I think it's like if you repped it, you would get better. But the only other thing I'll say this is hip mobility does seem to help a lot off too, and you're a little bit tighter in your hips, so that might
Yeah.
be one thing that I would say is like a little bit different. But you could still jump super high. Like I was able to do two-handers and basically windmills, and I did it for like 3-4 months. But it actually hurt my knees more than 1 foot because my hips were so immobile. I would twist on the takeoff. to get into
Yeah.
position to do a good jump. So if you have the requisite mobility to get in decent positions and don't have to twist a lot, then you'll probably be okay. But I think it's easier to just stick with what's natural and just get really good at dunking. Like if you learned how to cuff a ball well, which isn't about the size of your hands. I've learned this. It's more about like finger strength and wrist mobility. You would dunk the shit out of the ball because you could literally do your high jump approach like all out, get full speed, don't have to dribble. You could do cuff windmills, you could do fakey E-spays, you would probably learn eventually to do easy reverses and like rock the cradle and stuff like that. And you would scoops, you would get so many points from just how high you were that it might not even matter. Like if you're looking inside the rim, Daryl, guess what? Nothing matters. Nothing else matters if you're looking inside.
I might hit the court after practice.
No, I didn't do this. I don't want to be. I'm not responsible for this. I am not responsible for this. I would say too that transition to basketball takes a little bit of time. Like you have to get used to taking a shorter approach and running a lot faster. That was a lot different for me because high jump, you know how it builds.
Honestly, though, I think you'd be good though because you've dunked like.
Yeah,
like, but
I've seen Daryl dunk on outdoor courts, and he can literally walk into like a 2-hand reverse. Like he doesn't even have to jog. It's like a very light jog compared to his high jump approach.
Yeah,
no, true.
So if you were to like actually get used to it and do it consistently and get your rhythm right, like you do on like imagine trying to like 4-step, like gallop in 4-step. That's kind of what dunking. Actually, it feels like a 3-step. It feels like a 3-step.
Okay.
So imagine like gallop in 3-step 7-foot. That's what dunking feels like because you have a lot less space.
True. No, I need to get out on the court pretty soon here.
He's got the itch. I
gotta get going, by the way, guys.
Yeah. All right. We'll close it out. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. If you guys are a viewer, make sure that you follow Daryl on Instagram. Daryl, what is your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is dsully28.
And I will put this in the video in the description. So make sure you guys follow Daryl there if you guys want to see what he's doing on the track and hopefully on the court. Fingers crossed. As always, guys, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're looking for the best training in the world, we believe, Isaiah and I, when it comes to jumping higher, we are incredibly good at what we do. So THPStrength.com. I know that your coach uses TrackWired. So if you guys are a track guy and you're looking for some technical stuff, check out TrackWired. And D1 in Arkansas.
Yeah,
in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
I also like to shed light on the foundation of a former teammate, also a great friend, Your Foot, My Foot Foundation, about creating equitable access and opportunity for marginalized youth. And through April 1st to April 30th, we're putting on an online virtual fundraiser to get 100 cleats, 100 socks for 100 kids. So shoes get the job done as well. So
that's sick. What's the website for that?
I'll have to get it to you, honestly. It's
send me the website and I'll put it in the description.
No doubt. All right.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you on the next episode. Peace out.